I feel like I have so much more to cover in a very short amount of time.
Okay, all right.
I could talk to you forever. This is great. Well, actually, tell me. So, who have you spoken to? Who has helped not only your community, but in terms of professionals, for instance, that you just mentioned. Who have you spoken to that's been helpful for you?
Yeah. So I've gone a bit of the untraditional route. Um, Again, stepping into that holistic medicine and view for me, I wanted to look for more holistic routes. And so there's some data that shows that it is some people actually do have chemical imbalances and they need to go see a psychiatrist that can actually prescribe medications and things to help with that nature. Some people benefit from seeing a psychologist. Some people benefit from seeing a counselor. And I've surrounded myself by counselors and coaches, and also my spiritual community that really, instead of giving answers, it sits in a space that is okay with the questions. We're such an answer-driven society, and we don't want questions, and I think we need to move to a space where we're okay with questions and okay with not having the answers in the exact moment. So for me, it began to look like, all right, I looked at all aspects of my life because our mental well-being is just not our thoughts, but it's also the things that we put into our body. There's science that's talking about now our gut microbiome and how there's a connection to depression and anxiety and our thought process by the things that we put into our gut. So I looked at my food and my diet habits. I looked at the habits and the times that I was spending doing and not being. And I gave myself permission to slow down in areas that I needed to slow down in. I see a plant spirit medicine practitioner. I had this really transformative experience to where my eyes were open to the oneness that is all around us and the symbiotic relationship that we are the plants, that we are the ground, that we are the cosmos, that we're all connected and dependent on each other. And a lot of that was via my plant spirit medicine spiritual guru that I go to. And then my church community. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I go to an amazing spiritual community called Watershed. And that is a community built for growth as well. And so who they were 14 years ago is not the same as they were today, and it will not be the same as they will be in 5 years from now. And that is, I feel like people need to put their spiritual communities up with these. Are we remaining stagnant, or are we moving in a trajectory that realizes and connects us more and more to the oneness that is all around us?
Man, and as you were saying, it's all about a process, and I think all of our processes should evolve and should change over time, and that even applies to the church and these religious dogmas. I think, shifting with the times, a lot of things in history, as you were saying earlier, even slavery was considered legal, and something that was deemed okay through the Bible. So it's about shifting, the curse of Ham and whatnot. But once we start to shift our mindset and start to look analytically at these things that we've been taught, we can then grow. And even like in our processes, I tend to see a lot of people who, if they go through loss, they might want medication. Although a lot of people nowadays are shifting, speaking of, and don't want medication. They know that it is something that they have to work through, which is why I even do this podcast, to let people know it's a process. It's not just, here you went through a loss and you're dealing with something really painful and difficult, and I have a magic pill for you. No, that's not how it works, and it's not even worth it in the long run to just skip over and through I should say, the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Let me ask you this. What have you done creatively to express yourself through this process of yours?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things, I think that storytelling is a creative outlet. So that's why I'm on this podcast today, because it's an avenue to engage in storytelling, but not just storytelling, connecting through life via music. I play a couple of instruments, and to be able to connect through life in that way, it is really transformative and healthy for me. And also writing. I absolutely love to write. One of the things that happens when we write, and especially when we write about the things that are going on internally, instead of that energy, because emotions, whatever feelings and emotions that we're having, they are energy in motion in the body. When they get stuck and we keep that in there, that causes dis-ease in our bodies. One way of moving that and creating motion is by writing. And so this is why journaling is important. This is why poetry, songwriting, all these things are ways to create movement, so that that energy does not cause dis-ease within the body, which then I believe manifests as physical disease.
Absolutely.
Because of the internal processes and chemicals that are going on it's not for the scope of this podcast, but if you want to know the nursing terminology around it, send me an email.
right. And he will teach y'all. Trust and believe. Yeah. If we had the time, I would have you go into it now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. And not letting go of that stuff just leads to a dis-ease in our energy system and our emotions, and we hold that in, and it is so important, as you said, to activate that creative side of our brains, to get out of that logical side of our brain. Don't logic your way out of your pain. Right. Feel it, express it, get it out. So that's awesome that you do all of those things. You're really a true Renaissance man, and I love that you are open to all of those things. And not only that, but open to teaching others about that too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So it is because I've had amazing teachers flow into my life. And when you have amazing humans and teachers flow into your life, hold on to them, value them, cherish them. You don't have to be around them every day. But in those moments, be present. With yourself and with them. We're so busy so many times just on our phones and concerned about ourselves that we miss the opportunities for our blessings. So take a moment to be present.
Lift your heads up, y'all. Look around. Don't be down here.
Right. There's a time and place for our phones and technology, but we have lived millennia without them. How did we maintain health before then?
Yeah, and even without medications too.
Yeah, exactly. So be present with your life, with yourself.
Absolutely. So I feel like we have covered, Tommy, the action plan. I mean, we talked about some of your affirmations, the creativity we just touched on, who you've talked to, your introspective process, being open with your community, and practicing being in the now through breath work, through meditation. Sorry, that's actually my timer telling me we're almost out of time. But tell me any last words of wisdom, and I know you already mentioned your website, which is tommyallgood.com, so I will put that in the notes as well. But any last words of wisdom, any resources or anything that has been helpful for you in your process that you would like to share with the audience?
Oh, tons of resources, but we can put those in the links. We'll talk about that later. But
okay.
I wanted to just touch on this aspect. There's a scripture in the Christian tradition that talks about happy are those conscious of their spiritual need. And in our society today, what we've done is we've kind of separated mind, body, and spirit, and they all go together. And and what we tend to neglect most often is spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's because we measure our spirituality up by religion, and I think that is a mistake. So I think for a long time I defined spirituality synonymously with religion,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this became problematic because spirituality became confined by the religious opinions that boxed it in as you're trying to interact with the mystery of the divine.
Come on.
That continues to prove that there are no boundaries, although we see a lot of order in the world. So what that looks like for me today is everything is spiritual. Spirituality or connection with the spirit. And after my transcendent kind of experience, I began to perceive the world differently, the interdependent nature of everything. I was more than just thoughts. I was more than just feelings. I was essence. I was vision. I was reality. I was connected to everything in a way that I cannot describe, nor do I think I should, because every person's experience is a little different. I was simultaneously one with the earth and the cosmos. I was one with water, and I was one with everyone around me. So this has shifted in me how I see how the world operates, essentially. When we talk about evil and this disconnection in the world, I believe that evil is a karmic symptom of us not being aware that we came from the same source and that we return to the same source. It is the attempt to elevate ourselves over creation instead of elevating the essence of creation. Spirituality is suffering because suffering requires that we look inward and outward. We look inward to examine our mindset and our personal contributions to the suffering, or remaining in such a state even. And we look outward for perspective and community to liberate us out of suffering. Spirituality for me is realizing that the potential and the creative power that we humans have collectively, and moving into that space of service to walk with our brothers and sisters in their suffering and in their joy. This liberates us from the bonds of ego, self-doubt, disconnection, and puts us in our truest essence. Not an essence where we have to travel or die to achieve some heaven, but essence of who we are now as one collective body, living symbiotically, dependent on each other, working as parts of a whole. And that is bigger than any religion or suffering or loss that we can ever experience.
Whew. And that, my good people, is how we shift from loss to love. Thank you so much, Tommy, for sharing your story, for sharing your testimony, for being so vulnerable and so open with our audience. I cannot wait for everybody to hear this. This is a message that is so important. So thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of From Mourning to Action, Powerfully Working Through Loss. I will check y'all out on the next episode. Peace, love, and light, y'all. Bye.
Bye.
From Mourning to Action, Powerfully Working Through Loss is a podcast based on Dr. Damon Silas's 2 books. The first is From Mourning Tonight, Overcoming Loss, and the second one is What's Your Action Plan? 6 powerful ways to get unstuck in your life now. Be sure to check those 2 books out on the website www.damonsilaspsychology.com/store. You can also go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you can find any books and check that book out there. Furthermore, if you like what you hear, feel free to leave a review, and I'm always looking for guests. So please feel free to send an email to damon@tippingpointwellnessllc.com. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Peace, love, and light, y'all.